A lot of internships in college. I started my career at Ernst & Young. This was not something I wanted to do for the rest of my life. Got certified as a business coach. A nice little business, not necessarily scalable, but I had probably more fear of having to go back to the corporate world.
Yeah.
That worst case scenario, the most draconian scenario possible was I go and work for a corporate world and I live a typical life that everybody else lives. Ended up getting into the advertising world. Then I left Pulse Point to take on a VP of North American sales for a UK company called Telemetry. I love learning, and I have no problem working for people that I respect, believe in. We were going to all these events, and one of the hardest things, even for a small company, was, is this valuable? You're spending thousands and thousands of dollars. You are, when we were talking to people, we made the assumption that all these big companies had it together. Said, hey, how do you guys show the value of these events? And most of the time people said, well, we don't really know. Sometimes they said, oh, well, we had 30 meetings.
Right.
Great, did those meetings turn into business? Well, we have no idea, we don't track that. This light bulb moment and said, what if we were able to prove or get that data into Salesforce, job on a one-to-one level, but it's very difficult when I need to go and associate it at a campaign level or with an event. There's a lot of administrative work to tie that together. How do we make booking of meetings faster and easier? Speaking, we will 3 to 5x the number of meetings that salespeople book. I had like 3 ideas of business as a whole. It wasn't even just this one.
Interesting.
But this is the one that kind of kept coming back.
Yeah.
Prototype was a mobile app, both on iOS and Android.
Gangbusters, like from day one, or?
No, I would say complete opposite.
Yeah.
So it was very buggy, and although it was buggy, people were like, this is an amazing idea.
Yeah.
Like, regardless that it doesn't work, almost in some ways like Tinder meets events, but in a business capacity, conference space is about a $500 billion plus industry. Big companies that are saying, I'm sending 30, 50, 100 people to 80, 90, 100 events a year. Went out to all the people that we thought were going to be the buyers, which were VPs of marketing, CMOs. Whole pre-booking of meetings prior to an event was completely broken.
Okay.
And so universal level scheduling link that works in 3 different ways. It works at a company level. So a company can go and blast on LinkedIn, Twitter, their email, and say, hey, come meet us at CES. Automatically on the background, we will assign a salesperson who's available during that time slot that'll take 10 hours of some level of coordination to about 1 hour. We weren't just building an app or consumer-facing product. We were building an enterprise level, high-level security enterprise product, right? They'll tell you one thing, but until they start using it, you never get the full utility. Day one, we were probably offering it for free. Yeah. I would say to start. Probably version 1 we offer free. Version 2 we charged a bit. One of the things I think in general, when you charge people, there's more incentive to use it, right? If you give something for free, people are like, oh, it's nice to have, maybe I'll use it, maybe I won't, doesn't matter, I didn't pay for it. Initially, we started an annual license fee to a per event model. We definitely sold the great, and they got good. And they've actually are still a client today, reached on what we could deliver at the time.
Yeah.
Well, one of the key things is we have an amazing customer service team. And I think that's one of the key things in any type of enterprise business. First customer was the biggest insight as to things that were missing. What I realized quickly was we needed to build a very flexible product because every company does things slightly differently. I feel very confident today to say that we probably can address 90% of the way most companies work. Worked with some Fortune 100 companies, have the data typically to be able to do any type of analysis as to which events actually drive revenue. No one is going to do significant, millions of dollars in business with someone they've never met in person. Even with all the technology in the world, annual license fee. And what that does is it gives you basically 24/7 support, gives you access to the platform. We do the full integration. Price software is full down on is doing training so that people actually understand the value that they're getting. Our repeat customers is almost 100%. So we are about 25.
Yep.
Majority in New York. And we are hiring about we'll probably double in size by the end of the year. Okay. So we raised money from family and friends to start. And then we went and actually raised more institutional type money. Luck is an interesting one. I think there probably is some level of luck, but I do believe that people create their own luck. And what I mean by that is that people put themselves in situations to get lucky. So if you don't put yourself out there, if you don't take chances, if you don't take the risks, you will never get lucky.
Welcome to Startup Hunter, also streaming on YouTube. I'm here with Al Torres of SummitSync, which is a meeting automation platform. It's giving you lots of ROI in the B2B space, and he's built a company. So we're here to, what we do on this show when we're not crossing red lights and dealing with massive obstacles, and this is all part of it, is I take a look at your history of entrepreneurship. So
Yep.
Al, I want to start all the way at the beginning. Where were you born and what did your parents do when you were growing up?
Sure. So I was born in Panama City, Panama. I was born there because my mom is from Panama. My dad, originally from Cuba, grew up in New York City, but because he spoke Spanish, was working in Panama, met my mom. They got married there, but the plan was always to come back up to New York. So when I was a baby, we kind of came back up, and I grew up in New Jersey.
And what did your parents do?
So my father's worked for a bank for 30 plus years, doing a variety of different things. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, so she had the harder job.
So do you feel like there were elements of entrepreneurship in what your dad did?
You know what, actually I would say the opposite.
Yeah.
He has run a variety of different departments within the company, so in that sense maybe, but I think one of the things that essentially escaping Cuba, being the man of the household when he was growing up, was he was probably much more risk averse.
Yes.
So a lot for him was, hey, stable job.
Exactly.
Do it for 30 plus years.
Yes. My dad is probably your dad's age, and he's the same way.
Yeah. So very much that type of mentality, which totally get, and he provided an amazing life. I have a younger brother, so he provided an amazing life for both of us. But there definitely was this element of, hey, plan for the future. Don't necessarily do the riskier thing. And he's been very successful at his job and continuous promotions through all of these recessions and downturns, and oftentimes the only group making money within the banks. At the same time, he probably left a lot of money and opportunity on the table because he did it for the big banks and probably didn't get compensated the way he should have.
That said, I want to know, what was the first entrepreneurial thing that you did? Did you sell lemonade, something like that as a kid?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I think most kids do some version of that. My brother and I did sell lemonade. We wanted to do a garage sale and sell our toys so that we could buy some other toys, things like that. I don't know if that's just entrepreneurial or just something kids do to kind of stay entertained. I did a lot of internships in college, had some really good experiences in the corporate world. Internships in the corporate world, I started my career at Ernst & Young.
Which is a massive company.
Massive company on their consulting group. But it was an amazing experience because I got to work different projects across a multitude of different companies, all Fortune 500, kind of being in the weeds of what the different departments were doing.
Yeah.
And I think it very much gave me a sense that this was not something I wanted to do for the rest of my life.
Right.
Met a lot of people who had been at these various companies for 10, 15, 20 years and were miserable.
Yes.
So that was something I didn't want to be or do, but it was a great experience at the time. I mean, my real foray into doing my own thing was about 4 or 5 years into that job. I decided that I wanted to do more of be more of a coach to other people. I guess I'm the start of the millennial generation.
Yeah.
And I saw a lot of my peers who, had already left the job to do something. Everybody comes in at these big companies as classes. And myself and a few others were at our top of our class, and almost all of them had gone to do something else. And so the question arose, why didn't these top performers stay? And what I realized was that they wanted more.
Yes.
And so I decided to go out. I got certified as a business coach and decided to go off my own and be a professional kind of career coach.
Interesting.
So I did that on my own for about 2 years. Created a nice little business, not necessarily scalable, but But it was lucrative of working with a variety of different people, some much older and much more successful in a variety of ways, but still needed some direction.
So, okay, so tell me about that, because here you are, right? How long had you been at Ernst & Young before you decided to leave?
Probably about 4 years.
Here you are, like probably 26 years old, maybe.
Yes, around that.
Coaching guys much more successful than you. So why don't they just say, hey kid, you don't know anything? Like,
yeah, I think because if you understand the kind of point of coaching, coaching is not about being an expert in the field. It's about helping you kind of get out of your own way. So like, for example, like the best basketball coaches in the world did not necessarily play basketball, right? But they understand certain processes and methodologies, which is what you learn as a coach. So it's basically trying to get people out of their own head. So if you learn those well and you're able to kind of build a rapport with someone where they trust you to kind of get them through it, it's a very similar type concept. If you're looking for a consultant who is an expert in a certain field or have done something before, that's a very different thing. So I think people kind of confuse the concept of what any type of career coach or personal coach is versus a consultant who you're looking for expert advice from.
Right, and I think that's, I can really see that you've got the sales pitch down on that.
Yeah, I had it for a while. I did it for a while.
So how did you go about getting your first clients in that coaching business? Because starting a business, like, did you instantly have 10 clients or whatever, like enough clients to keep you going, or was there any adversity where, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like anything, right? You start out kind of reaching out to maybe not family and friends, but friends and acquaintances in the business community that you know. Telling people what you're doing, making them aware, offering discounts, a free session,
sure,
having people try it out. So that's kind of a way, like, you get people kind of interested. Initially, I did some friends of mine who, thought it could be awkward and weird, who found tons of value in it, were very appreciative of it, and took it very seriously, and got a lot of success from it. So, but like anything else, you kind of get started by just kind of doing that initial reach out.
And was there like a period of like 6 months or was there a moment where you're like, maybe this isn't working out, maybe I need to go back to Ernst & Young or the corporate world? Like, was there any, hesitation or fear?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think everyone has some level of fear of like, is this going to work out? How are you going to pay your bills?
Yes.
But at the same point, I had probably more fear of having to go back to the corporate world.
Yeah.
So you kind of just push through and figure out a way to get it done. I kind of looked at it this way, that worst case scenario, the most draconian scenario possible was I go and work for a corporate world and I live a typical life that everybody else lives. Right? And if that's really the worst case, I can live with that. I knew I wasn't going to be homeless. I knew I wasn't going to be on the street. I knew I had enough skills to kind of push forward and do something. So for me, the downside was like, okay, I'll just go do that if nothing else works out.
Yeah. But until nothing else works out, you're gonna try and keep this fire alive.
Exactly.
Tell me some good stories of this coaching business. Did you like go to Japan or did you have cool trips?
So I had a lot. So I didn't travel as much. A lot of it was done over the phone mostly. But I had an individual who was in his 50s, probably worth about $40 to $50 million. And what was funny for his coaching was that he was kind of stuck in his own world. Again, an amazing business person, but when it came to, what's funny is that you go to a business coach for quote unquote your business reasons, and half the time you talk about personal things that are disrupting your business objectives or goals, right?
Yeah.
'Cause, like, it is very difficult to separate them totally. And so I think if you have any type of obstacles in your personal life, it will affect your business and vice versa. So I'd say working with someone who is, I think in all accounts, extremely successful, almost double your age, and yet having them come back and say you've been an asset to them to move forward in their life was probably one of the most fulfilling times during that period.
Now here's, how long ago was this?
Ooh, this was, over 10 years ago.
Well, still 10 years ago. Okay, let me just throw something out there. You got a guy that's older than you, successful, but then you have all this disruption happening with the internet.
Yep.
And I sort of think that nowadays, I think older people have phones. Most older people know how to send emojis,
Yeah.
And there's apps even for people in that generation. But I think, there's a lot of value in helping older people, deal with the new disruptive technology world.
So my angle was always about, I was a business coach, but if you were running a business or working with a younger generation, whether it be through hiring, through management, through whatever it would be, that was kind of always my angle. So the advantage was actually my age, because I understood the complexities of what this new generation wanted, what they were thinking about.
Yeah.
So I was able to kind of bring that perspective to those that from a managerial experience were way above mine, but didn't necessarily understand that how things had changed today and what, hiring a 22-year-old out of college, how to get them motivated.
Yeah.
Right? So that was really kind of the angle that I took, and why people were willing to kind of say, take a chance on someone who was younger to bring them in as a coach.
Yeah. So how long did your coaching business last?
So it lasted for a little over 2 years, and then, I kind of realized that I'd kind of jumped into that alone quickly because I wanted to get out quickly out of the corporate world, but I wasn't sure what was next. Hard business to scale on an individual level unless you start doing more thought leadership type stuff. So I ended up, we created a few programs that I ended up selling off.
Talk about them.
Yeah.
What was the first one you created?
So it was just basically this angle of, hey, when you're hiring the big organizations, when you're hiring these classes of 22-year-olds and you have management who's been in these roles for 10, 15 years, you need to train the managers on how to motivate these what are just students, basically. And you have to talk to these students who, in my opinion, colleges don't get ready for the business world of, all right, how do you really contribute, work with a boss, deal with internal politics and processes and all that kind of stuff if you've never experienced it before. So the program was kind of, how do you bridge this gap for the original example of, if you have high performing people, how do you keep them there longer?
Yeah.
Right? Because that's the key, right? It's, those that aren't performing well, you don't mind if they leave, they can leave quickly. But those that are really high quality employees, how do you keep them there longer?
Yeah.
So that was kind of the goal. So we created a few programs. I had a partner that we created these programs together. We sold those, made a little bit of money and said, okay, what's next? And ended up getting into the advertising world, which was completely random through a mutual friend who said, I know you have this consulting background. I started as an engineer in college and ended with a finance degree, but had a very technical mindset and background, and said, hey, I want you to come and join me in this ad tech company.
Yeah.
And I said, I have no idea what ad tech does.
I have no idea what ad tech does.
And
it's a term that's thrown around, and I think every ad tech company has a different DNA, a different approach.
They all very different. People actually don't like using the word ad tech now. MarTech is the new lingo.
I've never heard that, but fantastic.
Marketing technology. Yeah. No one wants to be just advertising technology. Everybody wants to be marketing technology.
Well, I think advertising means TV, marketing means digital.
Yeah. So anyway, I decided, hey, I'm going to change I'll go into, wasn't a startup. They had been around about 8 years, about 200 employees, but again, not the 150,000 employees I was used to. So it was kind of a nice bridge.
Yeah.
So I went and worked there. I absolutely loved it.
Now, what capacity were you working there?
So I came in as a salesperson.
Yes.
To kind of learn the business, understand clients, with the intention of kind of coming into more of a management role and kind of bringing my consulting background to the other salespeople.
Yes.
Which had previously been much more transactional up to that point in time, given the industry and changing kind of buying habits. Did that for about 4 years.
No. what did this ad tech company do? What was the name of it?
Yeah, so the name of the company was Context Web.
Okay.
It was one of the original network advertising platforms. So basically the technology to scrape an individual page, add context to it, and then bundle different pages from different sites. So if ESPN had an article about parenting high school students, that page might have been contextualized as a parenting article. And you do that across thousands of websites, and then you can create this segment of saying, hey, if you are a brand looking to advertise to parents, we are going to do it at the page level.
Right, so we're talking
content.
banner ads and
back in the banner ads, yep.
What were the side things called?
Sidebars
yes,
or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then we went into video and mobile, and it was during that transition. So it was, then we merged with another company called Daytrend Media, and we rebranded as a company called PulsePoint, which is still around today. Then I left PulsePoint to take on a VP of North American sales for a UK company called Telemetry, which was more on the analytics side of the advertising.
Now here's an interesting thing. Here you are, business coach, and now you're sort of no longer the CEO anymore.
No, yeah, it was, it was an interesting dynamic. I mean, I love learning, and I have no problem working for people that I respect, believe in the product. So I think the idea that I was learning something new was super intriguing to me, and I was willing to kind of take that step back. But again, I had a lot of opportunity to bring new ideas into the business. I was one of the few that had a kind of a longer, more robust business background across a variety of things. So I was able to kind of add a lot of value as well. So I kind of felt that I was adding a level of leadership there.
So I think, being a VP is a good mix between getting paid well, not having the fear of going out of business, and yet you still have enough freedom where, as you're saying, you can apply the things that you've learned and that you want to work on.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's a very fair point. And then while I was there, I connected with. So I was leading the agency and brand sales and my team there, and then someone else came in to lead corporate development, big partnerships, et cetera.
So we're already talking a big established ad firm dealing with big brands.
Correct.
Yeah.
And while I was there, this guy, John Corrigan, who is now my partner at SummitSync, he came and joined the company Telemetry, and what we realized while we were there, we were going to all these conferences, trade shows, and events, and we were relatively, compared to the, at the time, the AOLs of the world and Yahoos of the world, we were very small, but yet we were going to all these, CES, South by Southwest, Cannes Lion.
Right, because they have a big advertising festival.
Exactly. So we were going to all these events, and one of the hardest things, even for a small company, was, is this valuable? You're spending thousands and thousands of dollars. You are not working on whatever your core day-to-day is during that travel time.
Yeah.
Are you getting the ROI in the back end? And I think, it was a really, really hard question to answer. And so initially, when we were talking to people, we made the assumption that all these big companies had it together, that they had stitched together their Salesforce and their marketing automation software, and they knew every meeting that was happening, and they were tracking ROI. And so we started talking to people, and we said, hey, how do you guys show the value of these events? And most of the time, people said, well, we don't really know, or we just figure out how many leads we got.
Right.
And I was like,
and you're spending, okay, so let's take Cannes Lion, because it's a great example. You're spending, let's say you send 3 people out there. You're spending easily maybe 10 grand just on travel.
On travel
maybe lodging another 10 grand, meals, blah, blah, blah.
If you get, so Cannes Lion is a great example, which is half boondoggle, half business. But some people used to get yachts, and they still do. And those yachts,
so we're talking extremely, high-end kind of.
High-end type thing. So you're talking a minimum of $100,000 investment plus, right? Especially if you're a bigger company, you're not sending 3 people, you're sending 10,
which
15,
is
30.
huge money.
Yeah, huge money. And so I'd say, like, so how do you know that this was successful? And most of the time they had no idea. Or most of the time they said, oh, well, we had 30 meetings.
Right.
Great. Did those meetings turn into business? Well, we have no idea. We don't track that. So we kind of had this light bulb moment and said, what if we were able to prove or get that data into Salesforce, because that's what everybody predominantly uses as their CRM, especially in that industry.
I literally need to use Salesforce for this podcast.
Yeah.
To
track everything.
Getting people down, like, oh, this person, I haven't bugged them in 3 months.
Totally, no, and it's a great tool, but I think one of the way that they built Salesforce is an ecosystem that does require additional tools to make it extremely valuable, because end of day, data is only as good as the input, right? And when you're at a conference and event, you have two constituents that you're dealing with. You're dealing with the marketing team, who's dealing with the logistics, who's meeting who, where, do we have enough room, are we double booking people, all of that. Then you have the salespeople who are saying, hey, I'm trying to get in front of my clients or prospects, and I want to get as many of those meetings as possible. Now, on the road, Salesforce does a great job on a one-to-one level, but it's very difficult when I need to go and associate it at a campaign level or with an event. There's a lot of administrative work to tie that together. So, generally speaking, salespeople are super lazy. So getting them to do that either before the event or after an event, forget it, you'll never get it. So the quality of the data of what's actually happened is either a lot of manual reconciliation requiring post-event hour meetings with an entire sales team, right? Think about that productivity. If you have 20 people in an event and you have to have an hour meeting, that's 20 hours of sales productivity lost just to reconcile meetings. So what we said was, how do we bridge that gap? So we did two things. We went out and said, how do we make booking of meetings faster and easier, and yet giving the transparency to the marketing teams to know who's meeting who, where, make sure that they can do resource management, not double book rooms, right? So because we made that easier, typically speaking, we will 3 to 5x the number of meetings that salespeople book.
Okay, but let's start all the way at the beginning.
Sure.
So what was, like, you told me about the light bulb moment where you're starting to ask people, but what was the first, thing that you did to sort of quit your current ad tech company, and did you have a prototype?
Yeah, so it's an extremely long story, but the slightly shorter version is we went out to dinner, we had a few scotches, and we said, we need to figure out how to solve this problem.
Yeah.
And we started thinking about it.
Yeah. Just like that guy back there. Let me see. There he is. See, that's you.
Right over there? Yeah. So, we started thinking about ideas and how we could do something. Then we even tangented off, well, why don't we start a different business and we can do these? And we had like 3 ideas of businesses as a whole. It wasn't even just this one.
Interesting.
But this is the one that kind of kept coming back.
Yeah, it
right?
was a pain.
Yeah.
A pain that you. The other things were cool. This one was like, I can't.
Yeah, I can't get it out of my head, and someone keep bringing it up, or like, I'm going to this event, it's so strenuous, I don't know who I'm meeting with, or I don't know how to get more meetings, or, I don't know if it was worth going. So it just kept coming up in various different ways, and we said, okay, this is something we need to think about addressing. And we actually started trying to address it through mobile only.
Yeah.
More so, again, with this assumption that companies had some level of sophistication to do this. And so we said, we'll be more supplementary, right? We'll catch a lot of the real-time meetings that happen.
So tell me what your first prototype looked like.
So the first prototype was a mobile app, both on iOS and Android.
And did you pay a developer? Did you do it yourself?
Yeah, we paid a developer, an overseas developer.
Wasn't a CTO, just a person that you're contracting?
Correct. And we had an MVP product, and we were initially going out to the events and saying, hey, for your events, we want to be your app of choice in order to help connect people, and we're going to help them push that back into their Salesforce so that they can track that data of who they met with, when, et cetera.
So you make the MVP.
Yep.
And was it just like gangbusters, like from day one, or?
No, I would say complete opposite.
Yeah.
So it was very buggy, as are most MVPs. But what was interesting was, as somebody who has a lot of pride in what I do, both in quality or anything I build, I was like, God, this is so buggy, everyone's gonna hate it. And although it was buggy, people were like, this is an amazing idea.
Yeah.
Like, regardless that it doesn't work half the time, this is awesome. And I think that kind of triggered like, okay, we now need to actually spend time researching this arena in more depth.
So, but just literally tell me, like, how simple was the first step? Like, what? Like,
it was literally the list of people you would see. Then if you logged in, you could log in with your LinkedIn. Almost in some ways like Tinder meets events, but in a business capacity, but then it connected everything to Salesforce. So if we had a meeting and we said, yes, we're gonna meet, you could do so and pick a location, and that within the event.
Yeah.
And then for that event, I'd push that data to your Salesforce so that
Yeah.
that was captured, right? And so it was very business B2B heavy, like as a tool.
Right, so your tech play, you're really integrating just a really basic thing. You're doing a really basic integration, but a super important integration. Just connecting meeting location into Salesforce to just reduce a little bit of friction.
Yeah, reduce a lot of friction actually. And I think it's one of these things that
Let's do the lawn.
Sure. You're talking about a trade show and conference space is about a $500 billion plus industry.
Yeah.
It's enormous. And it is one of the only spaces that technology for the actual attendees and sponsors of these big events doesn't really touch well.
Yeah.
Right? You have a lot of event software for the organizers of the event, registration, check-in, all that kind of stuff.
Right, Eventbrite.
Exactly, right? We don't touch that. What we do touch is the big companies that are saying, I'm sending 30, 50, 100 people to 80, 90, 100 events a year.
Yeah.
Right? How are you tracking that? I can tell you right now that 99% of those companies are tracking their meetings, if they're even doing it, through either Excel or Google spreadsheets.
Right. So you start, with the integration with Salesforce and your MVP.
Yep.
And then you realized it was buggy. And so what was the next step of research that you did?
Yeah, so we went out to all the people that we thought were going to be the buyers, which were VPs of marketing, CMOs, the people who were like leading this event investment. And we started asking them a lot of questions. We did some surveying. What's your biggest pain point? And what we started to discover was that the whole pre-booking of meetings prior to an event was completely broken.
Okay.
And so we said, okay, without fixing that first, we can't really do anything else. You can't supplement with mobile. You can't track ROI because the data's not accurate. So you have to start with how do you help them in the prior to going to an event, helping them track and book more meetings for their sales team.
Okay, so what did you do? What was the first thing you built on that thesis?
Yeah, so what we built on that thesis was, what is the predominant way that people are scheduling meetings today? So they're doing it either directly through email and their, let's say, G Suite or Outlook 365, and sending a calendar invite to a client. They are using some type of link. So Salesforce has, within their extensions, has the ability that you can send like a Salesforce link that ties to your calendar and book it that way.
Right.
The problem is marketing has no view into that, right? They have no idea what your calendar specifically looks like. Trying to do a shared calendar doesn't tie to that link directly. So what we did was built a universal level scheduling link that works in 3 different ways. It works at a company level. So a company can go and blast on LinkedIn, Twitter, their email, and say, hey, come meet us at CES. A prospect or client can literally click on CES. They can select the day, then the time, the location that works best for them, and automatically on the background, we will assign a salesperson who's available during that time slot with an automatic invite through that person's calendar.
So scheduling is notoriously difficult.
Mm-hmm.
I'm dealing with scheduling for a space right now. I have, the space's schedule to deal with. I have my people's schedule to deal with. And so it's just it's a real problem. And so I can imagine that tools to help it would be valuable. So it sounds like you're integrating with LinkedIn. What other social networks did you integrate with?
So right now it's just LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Since from a B2B perspective, that's the predominant one, and the one that most people are familiar with. But we have a variety of different kind of things in the roadmap that we're looking at depending on like client needs and asks. But I would say that we've taken what will typically take 5 to 10 hours of time on the average size company. When I say average size, like 10 salespeople going to an event, so a small company going to an event with like one coordinator, marketing person, that'll take 10 hours of some level of coordination to about 1 hour.
So let's talk about the growth of your company.
Mm-hmm.
What year did you actually do the MVP?
It was 2015.
Okay, and it's 2019 now. Like, what was the growth like?
Yeah, so the growth was slow to start because I think when we jumped in and we did that research, building the product took the longest because we weren't just building an app or consumer-facing product. We were building an enterprise-level, high-level security enterprise product, right? Enterprise software, which needed to be full integrations.
Now here's the interesting question I have. When you're saying high-level enterprise integration, big business, I'm thinking expensive development costs.
Yes.
But the question I have for you, were you sort of going iteratively? Were you like building one section, getting a little bit of sales, building another section, getting a little bit of sales? Or did you just do a huge spend?
No, so we were doing it kind of piecemeal, I would say. We kind of took the approach of, people tell you one thing, but until they start using it, you never get the full utility.
Exactly.
So we built, version 1, and we got feedback. And then we said, okay, here's what we're missing. And we built version 2.
Were you charging from day one?
Day 1, we were probably offering it for free.
Yeah.
I would say to start. Probably version 1, we offer free. Version 2, we charged a bit. One of the things I think in general, when you charge people, there's more incentive to use it. Right? If you give something for free, people are like, oh, it's nice to have. Maybe I'll use it. Maybe I won't. Doesn't matter. I didn't pay for it. Especially in the business world, because there is so much software out there. So I think when you actually pay for that software, you have a incentive to really use it and give feedback and want that level of support that you should have in an enterprise level software.
So what was your first pricing model?
So the first pricing model when we started, everything was initially we started an annual license fee.
Oh, interesting.
So we started so very much of you pay X amount for the year depending on number of events you're doing.
And what was the fee?
The fee to start depended on the size of the number of people you were sending to these events.
Okay.
So basically the size of your sales staff that go to different events. We then shifted to a per event model, and then recently,
can you give me an idea of numbers, like what it costs to get in to SummitSync in the beginning?
Yeah, so between 25 and 50,000.
Oh, so we're talking, no startups would really be using this.
No startups. Yeah, you're talking mid-sized companies. Minimum probably 300 employees. Those are probably the smallest companies we were working with. High growth companies. So. Yeah. Companies, again, if you're investing in one trade show a year, that's not who we're looking to work with. But if you're investing in 10 or more a year and sending, let's say on average, at least 10 people, some events 30 and some events 2, that type of activity that's very hard to manage is really kind of where we best fit.
So talk about your first sale at your annual package. I mean, that's so small amount of money. You're an unproven product, with no name. And so how did you get some company to give you $25,000? Who was it, if you don't mind saying? And talk about that.
I'm not going to call them out because I would say we totally sold them on the idea and a product that was probably more advanced than ours was actually at the time.
Yeah.
But, we have good salespeople and we understood the pain point, we understood the value. I would say at the time, though, we just didn't have enough time or resources to build a product as we wanted to. So the product was good, but it wasn't great.
Yes.
And so we definitely sold the great, and they got good. And they've actually are still a client today. So we didn't completely go above and beyond expectations, but we definitely probably overreached on what we could deliver at the time.
Well,
one of the key things is we have an amazing customer service team. And I think that's one of the key things in any type of enterprise business, which is you need to 100% focus and service on the customer, because the reality is tech breaks, things happen, things that are unforeseen, that are out of your control, and you need to be on top of it and give them the visibility of how to fix it. And that's regardless of what you do, whether you are Google, Slack. Like, if I'm using your product for my business to drive revenue or business process, you know, I need to at least know that you're there for me if things happen, which they inevitably will, because they happen to everybody.
So on the topic of growth,
yeah.
You got your first customer. Now, was it 10 customers, after? Was it pretty rapid?
Yeah, I mean, it's never as rapid as you want. I'd say our first customer was the biggest insight as to things that were missing, right? So,
really obvious stuff.
Yeah, obvious stuff in the sense of what we realized quickly was we needed to build a very flexible product, because every company does things slightly differently, right? So yes, everyone's booking meetings or aiming to book meetings before an event, but how are they doing that? Are they doing that through BDRs? Are the salespeople doing it directly? Is marketing more involved? Does marketing have access to something that sales doesn't? Does sales have access to something that marketing doesn't? How are they choosing it? So all these kind of nuances. So being able to build that into a product and have the flexibility to adapt to the different structures of these companies was probably the most difficult part.
Yeah.
I feel very confident today to say that we probably can address 90% of the way most companies work.
And that goes into I'm big on the 80-20 rule, which is if you do 80%, you're good. So
yeah, and I think we're much closer to 90. I mean, we've worked with some Fortune 100 companies and have addressed their issues. We've worked with some companies that are 200 people and addressed the way that they work. And a lot of the companies in between, which is really kind of where our bread and butter is. But I feel very confident we can address the way most companies work. Again, we have limitations in the sense of, from a CRM perspective, we only integrate with Salesforce currently. But they own about 60%, 70% of the market, so it's a really, really big, addressable market. But we have things down in the roadmap of other, CRMs that we're looking to integrate with. We have a version that does not require it's more of just kind of a scheduling tool. And we have some clients that use that. So, we're getting to that point of where I could eventually say is, hey, we can address anyone's needs in any capacity, and here's how you use it.
So you are a master of time.
We are a master of time. I actually love that. I really like that. That is exactly what we do, right? It's about efficiency. It's about time, it's about quality, right? Because I think the other key piece here is the age-old question. Everyone says they want it, which is, what is the ROI of this event? And the biggest problem is you don't have the data, typically, to be able to do any type of analysis as to which events actually drive revenue, right? Which is, for the most part, the reason people go. Some of them are educational focused, some of them are to see what the competitors are doing. Some of them you might sponsor to support your CEO who's speaking and you want to have some branding and awareness there. But generally speaking, from the B2B world, you go to a trade show or conference to meet new prospects or meet with current clients to either upsell, drive new business in some capacity. And so how do you prove that these events actually drive that revenue? Because our belief is this: no one is going to do significant, millions of dollars in business with someone they've never met in person. Even with all the technology in the world, the end of day, B2B, business happens face to face.
Yeah.
And all we're trying to do is basically prove that out.
Okay, so let's go back to your pricing model. So you said you were initially charged a yearly fee, then you went to a per event model.
Yep.
So
and we've changed again.
Yes.
So the most recent one is the one that I can say I feel extremely confident. What we do is we charge a $10,000 onboarding annual license fee. And what that does is it gives you basically 24/7 support, gives you access to the platform. We do the full integration. We do significant training. I think the other piece that a lot of enterprise softwares fall down on is doing training so that people actually understand the value that they're getting.
Yeah.
Especially because we have multiple constituents. So we do training for the marketing team, we do training for the sales team, we do training for management to understand, the data and the value they're going to get on the reporting they're going to be able to do.
So now you're already talking, big services company.
Yes, so that's in that piece. So that's the $10,000 to start. And then what we do is we've said, you know what? We believe in our product so much, we know that we can increase and that usage is going to be there, that we just charge $100 per person per event. So literally for the price of an Uber to the airport, you are able to get each salesperson to have more meetings, track the meetings they're having, and track the ROI of those meetings, all for $100.
Yeah.
So small companies can use it because they can come and say, hey, I'm only doing these 3 events, so I'll pay that licensing fee, and then I'll just pay, hey, we only send 3 people, it's $300. I send 100 people, then $10,000.
Yeah, well, I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, so it scales really well depending on the usage of the platform, and what we've seen is our repeat customers is almost 100%. And I think that just shows the value of the product of, hey, I don't need to charge you some exorbitant amount of money because you're going to pay when you use it, right? So there's a one-to-one value exchange there across the board, right? So we have a cost for onboarding and training. You're paying for that up front. And then after that, it's just based on consumption. And so, again, for $100, if you tell me that $100 is too expensive to track ROI, then you're not the right customer for us.
Right. Now, so it feels to me like you're doing pretty well in this business. Fortune 100 companies, you've got a great business model. How many people do you have at your company?
So we are about 25.
Yep.
Majority in New York. And we are hiring about another, we're probably double in size by the end of the year.
Okay, so we're talking growth and scale here.
Yeah.
The one thing I didn't get on, did you ever take any investment to grow SummitSync?
Yeah, we did.
And when did that happen?
So it actually happened very early on.
Yeah.
I think that was also kind of somewhat helped in regards to, jumping ship and starting the business. I tell people who start businesses now, like obviously if you don't have to take money, don't, because it gives you more opportunity later on or more options later on. But for us, it just made sense to do it, just given our circumstances. And
did you have like a lot of business coming in, and just like you were saying, you were promising a great product. So was there so much business coming in that you needed help to get to that exceptional level, or?
Yeah, so when we started, it was really like, the engineering cost, right? Like you said,
yes.
Building enterprise software is expensive.
Well, software is it's sort of expensive, and it's maybe getting less expensive, but it's expensive.
It's still expensive in building it, right? And building it the right way. Yes, is it less expensive today than ever before?
Definitely.
Sure, but it's still expensive.
Yes.
Most people don't have a few $100,000 to just shell out and see what happens.
Exactly.
Right? So it's expensive. So we raised money from family and friends to start, and then we went and actually raised more institutional type money. So one of our largest investors, Loeb NYC, which is founded by Michael Loeb, has been an amazing partner of ours. And
did he help you get customers?
Yeah, so he's helped us get customers. He has a model of where companies he invests in, he offers some shared services. So some kind of back end stuff, maybe some marketing services that maybe we didn't directly hire for. As you have a small team, you have people doing a lot of things that may not be in their wheelhouse or expertise, that are just trying to get things done. So the model of his investment is very much of, hey, we're going to help you supplement things that aren't necessarily direct to your business, in the sense of, hey, you need your salespeople to understand your product inside now, but maybe we'll help with some marketing services, creative services, accounting services, things like that. So he's been an amazing partner for us as well.
Yeah. You've grown a business. You have Fortune 100 customers. You're doubling your staffing this year. Clearly, you're growing. Things are going well. Do you think in the last 4 years that you've been on this, has luck had anything to do with any of this?
Luck is an interesting one. I think there probably is some level of luck, but I do believe that people create their own luck. And what I mean by that is that people put themselves in situations to get lucky. So if you don't put yourself out there, if you don't take chances, if you don't take the risks, you will never get lucky. So, I think that, yes, if we had things go our way at times, yes, but have we done everything possible and worked as hard as we could and worked nights and weekends and gave up stuff to have those situations be more likely to happen? Yes. So, yeah, is there some level of kind of luck and prayer and hopefully doing the right thing for people, kind of comes back full circle? Yeah, I think so. But I also think that when many people say you guys got lucky with this, it's also like, yeah, but we put ourselves in that position to get lucky. So yeah, we've definitely gotten lucky. I've gotten lucky of people I've worked with. I've gotten lucky of the people who've been investors and supporters. I've gotten lucky in my wife, my kid. They support me day to day and, don't kill me for working late hours or travel. So, I think having a good support system helps that too.
Yeah. Well, Al, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. Got my morning workout in here with this walk.
Yeah. Are you a morning workout kind of guy, or?
I know I am. I've already worked out, so this is the second workout for me.
I don't understand those people who work out at night.
I can't do it at night.
You see them up on the second level here in New York City on the treadmill at like 8 p.m. I just don't get it.
No, I can't. I would never be able to go to sleep.
Yeah.
I'm hyperactive at night as it is, so I don't need to add, post running or post workout to keep me up.
This is Al from SummitSync. Go check it out if you're a business. All my posts go on LinkedIn, and I've got a great network on there. So
awesome.
SummitSync.
Yeah. If you go to trade shows, conferences, and events.com,
yeah,
SummitSync.com, reach out to me on LinkedIn. I always respond.
So I'm gonna tag you and SummitSync.
Perfect.
Directly.
All right.
And there we go. Thank you.
Thanks.